I can't put too much stock in this, but I will say that Tyrese Halliburton, to me, being number one on this list is crazy when Rudy Gobert is right there. You know how I feel about Rudy Gobert. Tyrese Halliburton is a system unto itself. And so without Tyrese Halliburton, this Indiana Pacers team is not the team that is, getting ready to put the Bucks on the brink of elimination.
Yeah, I mean, I did think it was kind of shocking, but I feel like, unfortunately, he has a reputation for being a trash talker, and it just seemed like people just dislike him. Is Tyrese Halliburton the most overrated NBA player this season? Well, unfortunately, his peers seem to think so. The Athletic released its annual player poll this week with 14% of players polled saying that Halliburton is the league's most overrated. Now, Halliburton says he could care less, but Pacers head coach Rick Carlisle trashed the poll, calling it BS. Other players on the overrated list included Giannis and Jimmy Butler. Rodney, what do you think, or why do you think that Haliburton got the most votes in that category? And what are your thoughts on the poll itself?
Well, firstly, the poll only polled 90 NBA players, right? So that's a very small percentage of the entire league. So I just want to go on the record saying that. And notoriously, NBA players do not take voting very seriously. There have been years when players have votes to vote their peers in All-Star games, and people like that just barely got into games received some votes. So I can't put too much stock in this, but I will say that Tyrese Halliburton, to me, being number one on this list is crazy when Rudy Gobert is right there. You know how I feel about Rudy Gobert. Tyrese Halliburton is a system unto itself. And so without Tyrese Halliburton, this Indiana Pacers team is not the team that is, getting ready to put the Bucks on the brink of elimination. So you can't say that Tyrese Halliburton is overrated because he actually has results. Last year, he was in the Eastern Conference Finals. And so, yeah, granted, there was some luck involved within that, but it's also primarily because Tyrese has been so good.
Yeah, I mean, I did think it was kind of shocking, but I feel like, unfortunately, he has a reputation for being a trash talker, and it just seemed like people just dislike him, like his character or his personality. Maybe not so much him being overrated. So it should have been called, who do you dislike? Because that's what it seemed like the votes went to, because like you just mentioned, his stats speak for themselves.
Yeah, so, the great point. Let's talk a little bit about Tyrese's personality just for a quick second. Tyrese Halliburton comes across like an upper middle class kid who got too much confidence. And those things alone make him not very likable, especially because when he gets out on the court, he's a problem. He's a pain in the ass. His game is ugly, it's herky-jerky, but it's super effective. And so it doesn't look like what most NBA players want their game to resemble. And so when you pair that game with that personality, he becomes an easy target.
I have the little article from Sports Illustrated up, and they were talking about how Tim Hardaway Sr. said on Gil's podcast that he would play Tyrese Halliburton because he thinks he's all that.
Yeah, he just walks around with a confidence and an air of like he's just never been punched in the face. And you can kind of tell those people. I don't have a problem with it personally, but I can understand how other men might, be rubbed the wrong way by somebody with that kind of personality. But I do want to talk about some of the other people on this list who I feel like maybe should have been a lot higher. Obviously, I already mentioned Rudy Gobert. I like this person as a human being. On a one-on-one level, I think he's a really solid man. But you can't tell me Bradley Beal shouldn't be higher on this list. You cannot. Listen, I know Brad has had some years averaging 30 points, but those were on some bum-ass teams. And so any chance that he had to prove that he is a winning player went out the window this year because the Phoenix Suns aren't even in the playoffs, and they had a healthy Kevin Durant and Devin Booker for most of the season. The third person on that team is supposed to be Bradley Beal. He is a max contract player, and he ended the season on the bench.
See, that's what I'm saying. It's a popularity contest. At the end of the day, it's like, okay, we like Bradley, so we're not going to vote him, but we don't like Tyrese. When maybe they're not really understanding what overrated means.
Yeah, because if you swap Bradley Beal and put him on the Indiana Pacers and you put Tyrese Halliburton on the Phoenix Suns, I guarantee you the Phoenix Suns are at the very least in the playoffs and probably a top 3 or 4 seed. And so, because they needed a point guard, they need somebody to set the table.
Now, if you ask Kendrick Perkins, he would put Jaren Jackson Jr. on him because he had a lot to say about him.
Jaren Jackson Jr. is interesting. He's kind of teetering on that Rudy Gobert, symptom in NBA where like, yeah, you want some defensive player of the years, but you only average like 6 boards a game. Like you too damn tall. You a starting center in the NBA and you barely rebounded. Like there's some games he has 0 rebounds. That doesn't make any sense to me. I can't understand that for the life of me. Draymond Green was also on this list. I never really agree with that because I think Draymond Green's stats are more intangible than tangible, you know?
Yeah, he's just unlikable. That's what it is.
I don't think why do you feel like Draymond Green is unlikable?
He's not a likable character in this TV show we call the NBA. He's a villain. It's okay.
Who doesn't like a villain though? I feel like he's a likable guy unless you're the target of his, you know what I mean?
I mean, if you're a Warriors fan, then yes, you like Draymond. But if you're not, then you don't.
Okay, I hear you. Also, Ja Morant. Ja Morant was on this list, pretty high up, tied for 5th, which is interesting. I know you got Memphis ties. What are your thoughts on Ja Morant being so high on this list?
I would say Jaren over Ja because I feel like Ja is literally out here playing with one ankle. And unfortunately, he keeps having these injuries that are setting him back. But I think that a fully healthy Ja is going to give you everything he got.
But this iteration of the NBA where you need, some consistent outside shooting from your guard positions, is Ja's style of play effective in today's NBA? I think he's electrifying. But if he's your point guard, can you win a championship?
I don't know. And it's really crazy. I feel like the Grizzlies' decline since February, the end of February, needs to be studied. Because how do you go from the 2nd seed in the West to the play-in tournament? And you lost your head coach.
And you lost by 51 points in the first game.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I was going to ask you about that because I was going to ask you, did you feel like the Grizzlies are just really bad or is OKC just really good?
Both things are true.
Yeah.
Both things are true. And the Thunder are exceptional and they do a lot of things very well that the Grizzlies just can't contend with. Starting with having inside post players who actually get a bucket, step out to the 3-point line, and rebound. Jaren Jackson got to cover so much ground trying to guard Chet. What are you going to do? So, yeah, but I feel bad for Tyrese, man. You know what I'm saying? One of the few guys in the NBA who is still rocking the hook part. Like he's a throwback. I like guys who vintage with the haircuts, even though I got braids. You know what I mean?
Well, you all let us know down in the comments. What did you make of The Athletic's most overrated list? Do you agree that Tyrese Halliburton should be number 1 or should it be someone else that we mentioned? We want to hear from you.